Welcome, everyone, and hello in the Vision Talks, the series of interesting talks with the leaders and experts about resilience, work environments, mental health, and leadership. Today's series is special because we are welcoming a new network expert, and it is Jenni Schierman. She is an expert on the performance, executive coaching, and many others topic. What I'm sure that she will be able to share with you a little bit more in the detail. So, hello, Jenni.
Hi, nice to be here today. Nice to join you, and hello to everyone who might be watching this.
It's such a pleasure to have you here, mainly because I think your background is very interesting. You have had a chance to work with many leaders and performers, for example, also from the environment of a Formula One. So, how has it been for you? Have you seen there some mental challenges, like specifically for that area, or that are actually across different spheres and different areas?
Yeah, it's always interesting to me because I have had the opportunity to work in both motorsport all the way up to Formula One, and then on the corporate side of business as well. It's always super interesting to me when people on either side, either in motorsport or in corporate, are wanting to understand what are the secrets from the motorsport side of the world, or what are the secrets from corporate, because both sides want to know and want to understand what are the tips and tricks everyone else is using. And it's always fascinating to me how there are more similarities than there are differences working with those very, what would seem to be, different groups. And so I have had the privilege of working with high performers in both areas, and I've been able to take my learnings from both and benefit both. But yeah, it's been fascinating so far, my career. And whenever people ask me how I got into motorsport, I always tell them it was accidentally on purpose, because
Mhm.
that's kind of how it was. I was an enthusiast first, and then just followed my passion in motorsport. And the same thing with executive coaching. I was really passionate about helping people, and a long time ago was really interested in being a clinical psychologist. And then I took a few little changes in path, and that's how I ended up, kind of working with those two very seemingly different but similar groups of people. So yeah.
Nice, very exciting. I think there have to be many similarities because what I have seen when so I've been working, or Develop Vision has been working with leaders. There we are in a high pressure environment, whether it is business, whether it is a sport, and I think that's the field that is connecting actually the problem I see. And what is that's why we are highlighting that the mental health is very important to take care of, because once one person is under this high amount of the pressure for long of the time, something is happening over there with his brain, his identity, his like a experience of the life. So what is your experience with this? Like, how should one perceive the best own identity in this high pressure environment?
Yeah, so what I see happen a lot is that high performers, again, whether it's in sport or in business, they get very tied up and having this like one identity, which is the performer, the high performer, the achiever. It's all very metric driven. It's focused, and understandably, right? You're getting praise, you're getting recognition for being good at that thing that you're good at, right? And that's very attractive and it feels good. But then it starts to become the only thing that you recognize as yourself, and you sort of lose track of your other identities, because we're not just one thing. Any of us, we're lots of different things. And so what I've started to notice as a result of that with clients that I've worked with is anxiety and depression sometimes, and a lack of a sense of self, again, because we've ignored all these other bits of ourselves and we've only focused on maybe that one, the performer. And so over time, that can really contribute to those mental health issues that we start to see. And so what can be really helpful as a coach or as a other mental health practitioner is to help those clients reintegrate those other identities, whether it's, a friend, or they are a parent or a partner, or, a creative person, whatever other things were important or are important to them, but maybe they haven't been giving as much time or priority to those things because they've been focusing so much. They've had that tunnel vision on the career or the performance. And so that's some of what I have seen, observed, and noticed with clients that I've worked with, again, in both sport and in corporate.
Nice. And what would you recommend to one? Because these high performance business owners, leaders, sportmen, they need to give more than others probably to this identity. It's necessary for their success. So what can they do to be able to stay this performer, but at the same time to avoid some type of the depression, anxiety that you were saying?
Yeah, because I'll have clients come to me, and as a coach who has worked with high performers, I have not been immune to this myself, right? Like I got in the early parts of my career, I got very focused on, I'm a high performance coach, and that was a huge part of my identity. So I'm not trying to say like I'm perfect and I have never experienced this. I have, which I think is why it's helpful for me sometimes when I'm working with clients, because I've been there, right? We've experienced this. But I'm very transparent in that you're never going to have the perfect work-life balance, the thing that everybody talks about, right? That is never going to exist. It's all about what is important to you, and are there certain seasons, right, that you are going to maybe shift things to be more of a priority. I've worked with a lot of consultants, and their different times of year are incredibly demanding, and it would be difficult to give huge pieces of themselves to, whether it's family, friends, etc. However, during the time that you can, how can you shift then that identity of whatever it happens to be, whatever your persona, your corporate persona is, and how can you maybe make it micro, right? And still give bits of yourself during those busier seasons, so you don't feel like it's all or nothing, because that's what I hear a lot from clients that then go into those like borderline burnout, or that end up in burnout. And then at that point, by the time that we're there, then it's, well, now you're taking a break. Because one of my mentors, when I was in my master's program, they said, listen, we all want to be taking the hill, right? We're leaders. We're trying to take the hill. But eventually, if we don't listen to ourselves and our body, the hill is going to take us. And so that's something that I've always kept in the back of my mind. You're going to listen to your body. You're going to listen to, the signals it's sending, or eventually you are going to be forced to take the time and forced to put the balance in place.
That's super important, I think, to listen to own body, because that's usually what people experience when they go through the burnout. They kind of disconnect the mind and the body, and they are not able to feel anything. Am I right?
And as high performers, so often and you probably have seen this too, they are so often ignoring those signs, right? The messages that I've heard is, well, I just need to get through this next XYZ, right? Months, project, whatever it happens to be. So they, again, and I'm talking from experience because I've been in the shoes, we are ignoring those signals. And if you ignore the signals long enough, your body is going to be like, all right, fine, you're ignoring me, so I'm not going to give you the signals anymore. And that's when it gets really dangerous. So it's something I see a lot, that we're intentionally shutting down those signals. And then when it gets to the crucial time when you need to be recognizing them, they're not there for you. And so, yeah, I've seen athletes and, team members in motorsport, team members in corporate, so many people who have been either in active burnout or on the verge of burnout. And they're like, I don't know how I got here. And then we start to look back and I'm like, I think this is how you got here. And then they go, oh, okay. So sometimes it's walking them through, do you remember this? And okay, oh yeah, wow, that was like 2 years ago. Yeah. So it's sometimes bringing that awareness as well.
Nice. And what do you think is actually that first sign that we need to be aware of, that we are probably heading somewhere where we don't want, or where we should say like, okay, let me take vacation, let me reconnect with my creative self, or another role self?
I think it's a bit different for everyone, but I would say something that I start to see regularly with people is they start to have some of those like common triggers where maybe they're becoming, short with people who are close to them, because those are the people who are going to feel the brunt of it, right? Are you regularly being irritable and short, and where you maybe wouldn't normally be? If that's your personality, then that's another conversation for another day. But if you're noticing yourself being like having a short fuse, you're waking up and more often than not, you don't feel any desire to do anything, right? Like we all have those days where you're like, listen, I just don't feel that motivated today. Okay, hey, that's normal. But if it's those types of things where you're starting to recognize that loss of joy, right? And just for everything, and maybe the sleep is starting to be impacted. I see that quite a lot with clients. They can't slow down the brain in the evenings because it's just the circular thoughts. I would say like those are consistently things that I see. But in terms of what comes first, those are a little bit different for everybody. But these are the ones where I'm like, when they're consistently reporting these, I'm like, I think it's time for us to take a look back at what's been going on the last 6 to 8 months, and maybe we need to talk about taking a little bit of a break.
Nice. So you think that is there some way how we can actually prevent all of this? Because many teams would like to incorporate like the positive characteristics, as is resilience, as is emotional intelligence, some psychological safety. What can the team, the HR, the leader do to make sure that they have these qualities in the team?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. And I have been lucky enough to be part of some of these conversations. And I think the biggest thing that I would love for teams to take on, the leaders specifically, is role modeling the behaviors that you would like to see people adopting. And not just, so for instance, to give an example, if you say, I want you to be taking your vacation and holiday time and really disconnecting, then you as the leader better be role modeling that behavior and taking your holiday time and disconnecting. That means you're not sending emails and you're not checking in while you are on holiday. You are truly disconnecting. Another one similar to that is if you have, stated, whatever the hours are for the business, where you're like, listen, after X amount of time, 6, 7, like whatever it is, 5, 6, 7, again, it depends, country, etc. But please don't be sending your people business emails after those hours, because even though you might say to them, hey, I don't expect for you to respond to this, what I've consistently heard and seen in coaching is that, well, my leader tells me that they want me to take my vacation and they don't want me to be working after hours or on the weekends, but then they're sending, these emails and they're checking in. And so, I'm hearing this, but if I were to move up into that position, is that the expectation? So it's the role modeling, because there is this disconnect between what is being said and what is being done. And I really think that if more leaders would role model the behaviors that they are speaking, that it would drastically improve. And that's coming from all the way at the top, because there's also that disconnect that I see a lot of times is, it'll get to a certain level, but then up here, it's unfortunately, and I know that businesses are under a lot of pressure to meet numbers, and that we have to, I understand all of that. However, if you are constantly sending people out on burnout leave, that is not helping to meet those numbers either. So
yes, definitely. I think that the leadership model as an example is definitely something interesting, and what each leader can really think about and observe whether they are really a good example for their team or not.
Yeah, and there's actually a study that shows, and I have it bookmarked somewhere, but it literally shows the numbers in terms of if you model positive well-being behaviors, people are going to pick those up. If you model negative well-being behaviors, people are going to pick those up, and that's including your kids. That's the people that are reporting to you. That is everybody. So it's a win-win for everyone in your homes, depending on who you're wanting to pick up those behaviors, right? If you want your kids to go to bed at a certain time, well, then show them that you have a nighttime wind down routine and that you're doing the things that you're telling them to do. The same with your direct reports, right?
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. And also, as you were saying that you have your own journey as a performance and executive coach, I'm sure there were many moments and times of self-realization, self-learning. Would you pick one that is like particularly special for you and that you still remember to yourself until nowadays, maybe?
I think for me, part of it was honestly going through burnout. And at that time, I hadn't been through my master's. I hadn't, become an actual coach at that time. I was like everybody else, trying to figure things out, working in corporate and trying to figure out if something was actually medically wrong with me, because I did not know what was going on. I was working a very demanding job. This is going to sound similar or, familiar to a lot of people, but I was working a very demanding job that had a lot of visibility. So a lot of eyes were on me. And I was traveling for that. I had returned to finish my education as an adult. So I was working full time, going to school full time, plus I was traveling for business. And on top of that, I had a parent that was 2,000. I'm sorry, I don't know the kilometer, but it was 2,000 miles away. Sorry, miles, not kilometers. Apologies. Somebody can make the translation there or the conversion. But they were very far away, and they were ill. And so I had the stress of an ailing parent on top of all of that. So a lot of people can probably resonate with the extra added stress of that. And then I, was trying to decide, was I going to go back and do my master's after I completed my bachelor's? The answer ended up being yes, but it was all of that journey, but then just not feeling like myself and trying to medically, because I thought that there was literally something medically wrong with me, trying to get to the bottom of it and figure out what was going on. So it's taking all of those learnings and looking back, like I do with a lot of clients, and realizing that the choices that we make every day contribute to how we feel and how we show up. And if we can make small little changes, because spoiler alert, I didn't completely overhaul my life and end up where I am. That's not what happened. I made small little changes.
Mhm.
And as I knew better, I did better. And so it's really trying to help clients understand that you don't have to completely overhaul your life if things feel a bit unsteady right now. You can make small changes, and over time that's going to be sustainable, and that is how you're going to end up digging yourself out of burnout. Do some people need to make drastic changes sometimes? Yes, of course. But overall, little tiny changes do actually make a difference. I'm living, breathing proof of that.
Nice. Let's keep breathing.
Yes,
Very
definitely. Yeah.
so how thank you for sharing that. That's I'm sure something special because it's very personal. Maybe when we are on this like a more about your experience, I'd like to ask you, what advice have you ever received or you have given that has been surprising for you by its impact or its results?
So I had a mentor back when I was, again, doing my master's. And I liked to think of myself back then. This was, trying to remember, 6 years ago, roughly, like 6 years ago. I had worked in motorsport for many years by that time. I had been in male-dominated industries. I had been in areas where I thought it required a lot of confidence, and therefore I was showing up with a lot of confidence. My master's required us to do a lot of peer-to-peer coaching where we were recording ourselves. And my mentor, who had been an executive coach for 30 years, so way back in the dark ages of executive coaching, where where it first started, really, he said to me during a mentoring session, kindly, but he said, how do you feel that your confidence is? Do you feel it's where it could be? Do you feel that it's something you would need to work on? And I was like, huh? No, I think I'm fine. What do you mean? And I got a little bit, about it. And so we dug into it a little bit. And the reason he was asking is because at the time I had already launched my business, was starting to work with motorsport clients, but I was having a lot of difficulty converting. I was getting a lot of like incoming leads, but I was having a lot of difficulty converting those leads. And I was telling him about this. That's what led to this conversation. And after I reflected and we had the conversation, I went back to him and I said, I think I'm self-sabotaging. And I think actually my confidence is not where I would like it to be. And I think that's what's causing it. And he said, I'm glad that you come to this realization. Now what are you going to do about it? And so I'm grateful that he challenged me again in a kind way, because if he had not done that, maybe I would still be in the US right now. Maybe I would never have coached in Formula One. Who knows what would have happened, because I was not showing up how I could show up. I was not comfortable being my authentic self. And so, yeah, I would say that was maybe the more surprising thing that I have been presented with. Yeah.
Beautiful. So when you are now saying about authenticity, what's coming to my mind probably to stay aware that we are authentic on our journey, that can be one of the main compasses for us to make sure that we don't end up in this burnout zone, like stressed out, over anxious.
It's really hard for people. And I was lucky enough last year, we're coming up on Pride Month in June. I was lucky enough last year and the year before for an existing client to get to present during Pride. And last year I talked about authenticity and how to bring your authentic self to work. And I realized that not everybody can do that fully. And I know that it does bring anxiety and stress and tension when you cannot do that. And I have been in that situation. And so I have a lot of empathy for people who cannot do that.
Mhm.
But like you said, I really believe that it is so important to be as authentic as you're comfortable being in all facets of your life, because it does wear on you. It really does. It has an impact on your mental health and on your health, not just your mental health, right? So all of it. And so as you evolve and as you change, having that check-in with yourself and recognizing, like, am I being authentic to myself? Like, is this me now, or is this me a few years ago? Like, who is this version, right? I think
Mhm.
that is it's so important. So important.
Mhm. And is it okay to evolve this authenticity? What if one day we get lost in that yesterday my authentic self was someone else, then who is it today? And then we feel lost. We feel like, have I done something wrong? Or who have I become? Have I become better version? Or the version yesterday was the better than today? How not to get lost in all of these changes?
I think it's really important to know what your core values are. I think that's one of those conversations that I like to have with clients, like, who, where are we, like, baseline, right?
Mhm.
Because if you know those things, those are probably not going to change so much. I mean, they could if you have some major, life altering thing happen to you, right? But for the most part, those are probably going to stay pretty solid. And so coming back to those and saying, okay, are these still solid? Yeah. Okay. So how is this version of me aligning with these? Okay. Are we still good? Yeah. For me, at least, and for some of the clients that I've had that have struggled with that, whether it's work related something or personal related something, that's been helpful. But also, I think sometimes, as somebody who has moved to a completely different country, didn't fully speak the language, right? I was not fluent when I got here. My 6 years of Spanish when I was younger was not enough to get me by. Um, Sometimes that discomfort can be incredibly powerful, and not fully knowing where you're at, who you are, gives you an opportunity to evolve into some new version of you that is going to be a better version than past versions.
Mhm.
I hear a lot of clients talking about past versions, and I think we romanticize the heck out of, Jenni in 2012. And another one of my mentors from my master's, I talk about a lot of them because they were fantastic, but like another one of them, she was so lovely to me because I was really stuck in doing exactly this. And she's like, but would that version of you have done this thing, this thing, this thing? And I'm like, no. And she's like, would she have had the capability to do this and this and this? And I'm like,
Mhm.
no. And she's like, okay, do you really want to be that version? And I'm like, no. So sometimes it's having a coach, right, to sit with you and to hold the mirror up and say, is that, do you really want to, right?
Mhm.
So yeah.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's a very interesting topic, and many other people should sit with themselves and make these maybe monthly checks to see if they're actually standing on the journey and the path they want to go, and check up with their values and all of these amazing things you have shared.
Yeah.
And as we are getting a little bit to the end of our conversation, as you are the new expert in the Devolution Network, me personally, very excited to have you on the board. But how about you? How do you feel about it? Do you believe and think that? Because we know it, how important is mental health and all these qualities we were talking about in the workspace. Um, but what would you share with others, with the leaders, HRs, team managers? What is the importance of all of this for their performance and productivity and success and identity, maybe also?
Yeah, I would say that, again, I know that business results are important to everybody. I am not ever trying to downplay that. However, if people are struggling, and they are, whether you're aware of it or not, because they are going to show up as the best version of themselves and then go home and not be the best versions.
Mm.
So I would rather see how we can support them so they can show up as the same version, right? That they don't have to go home and quietly struggle. Mental health is so incredibly important, and I want there to be less of a stigma. There doesn't need to be a stigma around talking about it, around supporting our direct reports, our coworkers around it. And it doesn't have to be a big uncomfortable conversation, right? It can be little check-ins like, hey, how are you doing today, right? It can be very, very small. It could be very simple. And if you don't feel equipped to do that, hey, guess what? There's experts that are perfectly comfortable having those and providing you with the tools to do that. I remember a long time ago being uncomfortable to talk about those things.
Mhm.
And I am perfectly comfortable. So if I can be made comfortable, anybody can be made comfortable, right? Um, I remember having people cry around me. That made me very uncomfortable. And now it's a Tuesday, right? So anybody can learn these skills and can be more comfortable, and every workplace should provide that safe space, right? So I don't think that psychological safety or resilience or any of those words that you hear a lot, I don't think that they're buzzwords. I think that they are a necessity and a requirement for a healthy workplace.
Great. Very insightful. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you,
Mhm.
Jenny, for your experience, your expertise, and your time, and for everyone over there. Jenny can be easily reached also through the television or through the LinkedIn, and I'm sure that uh, she would share more of her knowledge in one-on-one sessions or even through the workshops.
Happy
So
to.
thank you so much.
Thanks. See you soon.
Bye.